Peace, world. Thanks for pressing play on another Pay Me No Mind sports and entertainment video or live stream. If you work with me for just a second, I'm trying to troubleshoot a few things. It's the second or third time I've tried to do this. There we go. All right. Trying to do this recap on this week's episode of The Shy. And I already did this earlier while the game was on. And excuse me, something changed in my while the game was on. There we go. Excuse me. All right, I just want to check one more thing before I get to breaking this thing down real quick. Yeah, I guess this code changes every so often, and there we go. So we're rocking. I really like this episode a whole lot, so I guess that's why I'm going to do this a second time. Like I said, I already did like a 35. It ended up being about 35 minutes long, and something happened to where, this code changed. I wasn't aware that it updated, so maybe there's some frequency once a month they change this code that you need to live stream. So, I'd like to shoot a little link back out on Twitter real quick to let everybody or let people know that I'm talking about this. I'm not sure I can get it out there. Anyway, before I jump into this episode of The Shy, of Showtime's The Shy, episode 4, season 2, Showdown, I just want to get a quick word out there. I was able to complete watching season 5 of Bosch, BOSCH. For anybody that really likes television, I would just recommend you checking out Bosch. It's on Amazon Prime or Amazon Video. It stars Titus Welliver and Jamie Hector. I've talked about it here on the channel before, but it's just a really dope series. It's detective work, but it's really I really would suggest at this point, if you do check it out, to go back and start at season 1, because you really need to understand the world that they've built around, in Los Angeles, the office culture, the pecking order of everybody, or the hierarchy. It's a lot of they actually have to take the time to just magnificently weave in so many different angles outside of just the cases and the detective work. I mean, it's really a dope show. It's really handled really well. It really covers a lot of ground. It's a diverse cast, and if you like real suspense or real investigative storytelling, detective, you actually feel like a detective by the end of season 2. But it's just a fantastic show. I really can't say enough about it, but if you jump on the wrong place, I think it might seem a little boring, just based on it could come across a little boring if you don't catch in, if you don't know what the backstory is on a lot of the stuff and why it moves at the pace that it moves at. But trust me, it's a really dope show. I don't know how many people have Amazon Prime or Amazon Video or Prime Video, whatever it is called. I don't know how many really are checking with it, but it's definitely worth your while, and it's just a fantastic show. I'm out here rooting for somebody to stumble across it, so I have some people to break the showdown with and talk and discuss it with. But anyway, let's get into this week's episode of The Shy. The Shy. This episode was called Showdown, and I mentioned this earlier when I thought I was going live. And this is why people should hit I'm not a big proponent of pushing the notification button, but there's a purpose for it. Now I don't have the time to really jump back out and go to Twitter and get a link and put this on Twitter, on my Twitter account, which is up there in the left hand corner, at PMNM Haven. But I don't have time to go on there now and shoot this link out there to tell people that I'm discussing the Shy. But if people hit that notification button and check in, you at least have the opportunity to disregard the topics or content that I might be on here talking about at any given moment, and it's not what you really rock with me for to understand. You might care very little about boxing. So, but here I am with some entertainment stuff, and like I said, what I was getting ready to get into, this was I really tried to check to see who the writer of this show was, and I apologize, while I was watching the episode, when the credits started, I did not make note of who the writer was, and then I haven't made note of who the writer was for the past 3 episodes. So I couldn't tell you if it's somebody different, but I will try to mention why I felt like this show had such a different tone to it. And it was one of the better episodes of The Chi. I do want to say I'm not completely down on The Chi. I'm not I don't have a negative perception of The Chi. There's not much about it that I dislike, but I just want to mention before I get ready to breaking down these 6 or 7 points that I have, talking points that I have. One thing that I continue to struggle with is, what is The Chi? What is it about? Where is this show taking us? I kind of struggle with that week to week. Like, what are we really getting out of here besides what life in Chicago is kind of about? And I say kind of because I just had boxer Joshua Greer Jr., who's from Chicago, and he said he likes the show, but this really doesn't remind him of the Chicago that he knows. I want to say he trained, it's a park there, I can't remember what it was, but it's a park where a gym where he used to work out. Just to give you context of where he was from in Chicago, it's something with the G and park. It might be considered Cicero, maybe, but anyway, yeah, I just don't know where we're going here. And then along with that, what about Chicago is The Chi showing us that the series of shows based on Chicago on NBC with Med, PD, and the Fire, what are we seeing on The Chi that we don't see through the lenses of those shows? But obviously that's more, Lena Waithe is who she is, and Common is involved in this. So we're getting their vision of what they want to show. Secondly, I told you that I've struggled with the investment into the storyline that involves the kids, the kids basically. I was gonna say teenagers, but they kind of stay a little vague about how old they are with Kevin, Jake, and Papa. But it's a Sunday night show, and you're asking us to, and it's cute. I mean, some of the situations, we take a trip down memory lane. They introduce a lot of humor through the children or the kids. It's a lot of positives with the kids, but I'm just struggling. Like Sunday night at 9 p.m., 10 p.m. I really don't, as an adult, I really don't care to sit here and watch a story about a few kids, and then you juxtapose that up against the storylines of what's going on with Brandon, with all of the adult stuff, and it's a crime investigation going on. Like I said, I don't know what we're really doing here, but I will say this particular episode right here brought a couple things together. Last week I mentioned we learned why Ronnie is the piece of crap that he appears to be, and this was a good episode. I really enjoyed it. But let's jump into it. Where was it? And I apologize again. I did not write this down chronologically. My order could be here, could be jacked up a little bit here. I didn't write this down as I was watching the show. but I believe it started off with the fire at Sonny's with Emmett. And this is another point that I've made the last couple of recaps. None of the characters on this show are really winning. I mean, everybody takes an L. Every scene that we see as it switches from scene to scene, from character to character, the main character that we're watching and rooting for in some instances, they just continue to struggle and take L's. And Emmett is a perfect example, who is he's quick on his feet. He's got some hustler in him. He's got a mouthpiece on him. He can influence people. He's charismatic. At different points in times, he can be right up, spot on with anything that he's talking about. But the way he executes most everything he executes goes off. It ends in failure, miserably in failure. And so here it is again. He's taking over Sonny, trying to be a positive light in a bad situation, with Sonny having his stroke in the last episode. So we saw last week that he was struggling with maintaining the side orders at Sonny's after he convinced the family to to keep Sonny's open and to allow him to run it. And he tried to step up, and we salute him for that. And we're rooting for him in being successful in that. But then here it is this week. He starts rubbing some of the staff and the team the wrong way. And in this episode, he's trying to make sure that the cook is staying to finish his shift. And the guy's like, hey, it's my Sonny gave me the day off because of my girlfriend's birthday. He knew about this. I'm out of here. I'm leaving. And then a fire starts. And of course, we already knew what was coming. You don't throw water on a grease fire. And here it is, directly because of the actions of Emmett, Sonny's is burnt down enough to where the Chicago Fire Department rules where it can be open and operate. So now the business is shut down. Who knows what the insurance situation is? I'm sure it's going to be some issue there if we do see Sonny again this season. But now he's affected everybody. And we know that he just made his first child support payment to Tiff. So now this puts all of that in jeopardy. And of course, like I said, he takes another L. Now, this puts him in a situation where my second point, we run into Brandon because Emmett approaches Brandon last week. These two brothers nearly squared off, but they got into a verbal altercation because Brandon wanted to park the truck, which made absolutely no sense. Absolutely no sense. But Brandon tried to park the taco truck in front of Sonny's, and Sonny told Emmett to go out there and tell the brother to push on. And so they go back and forth. And so from that experience, Emmett goes and seeks out Brandon and pitches him the idea that, hey, the store is closed. I mean, the restaurant is closed right now, or Sonny's is closed. For 20%, I'll let you set up shop there, and 20% of the proceeds, go ahead and cook there. And so Brandon initially spurns that idea and was like, well, why do I have to pay you if it's open anyway? I can just pull up, set up, and get to cooking and take advantage of the customers who would otherwise be coming there for Sonny. However, fate has it, Brandon has to get ready for this aftertaste contest that he was able to talk himself into. And he goes back and follows up with Emmett, and they agree. He makes an agreement. Hey, if you'll take care of the truck for me, I'd do better than your 20%. We can split it 50-50. I just need some time to get my situation together with this contest I'm working on. So, of course, Emmett is all into it. Now, what I said earlier when I tried to do this the first time around, this is one of the areas, and it's a smaller example, but it's one of the areas where the writers really struggle with detail. And it's like part of the appeal and what Brandon is doing with the truck was making these tacos with a cultural update on them to better service the neighborhood or the area and the clientele that he's selling to, the customers that he's serving in this particular area. And how in the hell in a handshake and a quick pitch and a quick yes and an agreement to do business, to work together, how in the hell does he know how to make these tacos that are that are making the food truck popular? So they don't spend any time right there. He just agrees to take the truck. Okay, shame on me for looking at such a detail like that. But so that was second point. I'll come back to that in a minute. With, of course, again with Emmett actually trying to execute getting the money. It's the reason why he has us take a few steps back after taking 2 steps forward. Another situation here is that I mentioned Reg is he's finding it out that heavy is the head that wears the crown, and I don't know where we are with Reg as viewers. He basically backstabbed Trice to be the number one, which he learned this season that he's actually not number one. There's a tribute that's owed to the people up off of the streets, which is this cat. I don't even know what his first name is. Duda, who we see in this episode in another capacity, but I'll come back to that. But Reg, again, another thing that I struggle with the writing on the show. What the hell does Reg's crew, what do they do? What is their hustle? Are they selling drugs? Are they selling guns? Are they robbing folks? Is it crack? Is it weed? Is it heroin? Are they selling stolen goods? Like we don't know anything about this organization, but yet and still they have this pretty significant sized tribute that needs to go up to the boss. And most times we watch these guys, they're playing video games, getting high, or drinking, and just jacking off time. And so I've been saying this for through the first season. Like, what is the real hustle on this show with the streets? That's another area of weakness in my opinion, and why I'm not trying to be negative just for the sake of being negative. But if I'm gonna give you 55 minutes of my time, I want to maximize it, and and I hold you to a certain level of script and storyline integrity and this street situation. But anyway, let me not get off on that tangent. Reg does show us some growth here, that he is capable, he's knowledgeable, he has an idea of the big picture. He's not a dumb brother. And one thing what we do with our street, our gangsters in some of these shows, such as The Wire and The Sopranos, we expect some of the leaders of the street organizations to have a certain charisma, a certain amount of wisdom. We look to them for quotables. Prop Joe had iconic scenes. Stringer Bell had iconic scenes where he said something that we still quote to this day. Omar, who was just a bandit, really, one man gang. But Barksdale, like, we get all of these sayings or basically these quotables that resonate with us, and we latch on to these guys. And Reg really just isn't that type of criminal. But here, I think he does have a very dope conversation with his brother, younger brother Jake. And last week he tried to school him on how to really sell product and move product, which was one thing that he knows. He knows the game. This week he tells his brother, and this is what's his brother's name? Fitz Barton or something. Let me see real quick. Barton Fitzpatrick. I'm sorry, Barton Fitzpatrick. he tells his brother, you know, because he's going out and kind of scouting his ranks after. Well, I won't get in. I should have told Toussaint first, but he's looking at his ranks, sizing up his guys to see what his workforce is about, and he has a bigger kid in the group who's 14, and but not the smartest, wasn't the sharpest nail in the box. He goes back in the house after admonishing that young brother about, or really encouraging him to get ready for what he's going to need him for eventually. And then he goes back into the house, and Jake tells him, well, he might be big, but I can whip him. I could whoop him if necessary. And Reg tells him, I just need you to stay on them books and stay sharp with those books, because one, I don't need unnecessary heat coming around here because you're not in school. I don't need you attracting that type of attention. But then he said, secondly, he said, make sure you're smart enough to know that when someone asks you about your size, you don't tell them what age you are. They know that those are two different things. So he's telling his brother, you know, don't put all your eggs in one basket with this street stuff. Like, get some real knowledge about you and an understanding of the world. And so that was one of the, you know, it's one of the scenes that really is lifting up Reg's status to me in terms of all the gangsters that I've watched on all these shows and movies throughout the years. So I might come back to Reg here with another point. But then Detective Toussaint is another point. This is what, point 3? Point 4. Detective Toussaint continues to she continues to pique my interest. She's very confident. She's street smart. She's capable. She's a mover and shaker. You know, it's dope that she pulls up on Reg, just her and one other officer early in this episode. And she knows she's basically out shaking the trees or rattling the cages to produce some information, to get a reaction out of Reg to help her, advance in this case that she's working with, investigating the home invasion on Miss Ethel. So they pull up and catch Reg and Big Mike talking out in front of the house, and they take Big Mike back to the station, and it's just to infuriate Reg and to possibly make him make some move or give somebody up. And so and she confronts him and she lets him know that, and I guess that's what the title of the show about is, the showdown. It's one of the 3 showdowns in this episode. But she confronts him and says, I'm on to you. I'm working you. And you either gonna give me an answer and give up who I need for this home invasion, or I'm gonna make life miserable for you, and we'll take it where we need to take it. And Red showing some showing his skill. He addresses her as Miss, but he stays firm though, because he knows eyes are on him. But he plays the role as not to incite Toussaint to do anything above, just taking Big Mike off the board for a while. And that's another thing I mentioned earlier on the first time I tried to live stream this. One of the weaknesses of Reg and his organization is he really doesn't have a capable number 2. And Big Mike is more of a muscle guy, more so than a strategist. So he's another weakness, an area of weakness for Reg. But yeah, this whole scene right here is just pretty dope. To see Detective Toussaint pushing his buttons and looking for and basically forcing his hand. She lets him know that she has leverage on him, and it's really dope how she's working this whole case. So she's definitely one of the emerging. Like I said, one of the problems with this show is there's really not many characters for you to root for, but just Detective Toussaint. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I just like her confidence and her strength. She's turning me into a fan, and is one of the reasons why I continue to tune in each week. Looks like her name is Crystal Ann Dickinson. Moving on to my next point. Of course, like I've mentioned earlier, the major characters in here continue to take L's from scene to scene to scene to scene. I mean, these brothers and sisters just struggle. But Brandon, last week he talked himself into this aftertaste, this cooking contest. This week he actually starts it, and we're rooting for him. He was successful, and after meeting with his cousin and getting the encouragement to go down there and talk them folks into letting you in there. Who cares if you aren't upstanding or in good standing financially with the school? They should make an exception for you. So he goes in there and successfully does that. He takes his 2 steps forward. And then, of course, he shows up, and the brother forgets the most important, damn near the most. I mean, the only thing more important could have been the ingredients. But they tell him when the contest starts, they tell him everything that you need has to come out of the crate that you brought your materials in with you. And of course, he gets to cooking his thing. He's running along. He's humming along, getting his plate together, his entree. And then the brother finds out that he doesn't have a plate to actually serve, or plates, plural, to serve the 3 judges. But the thing is here, I think it was a dope. Like I said, the writing on this one really picked up. I'd like to know who we should credit for this. I can go back and watch the episode. But he actually thinks on his feet. He solves the situation for himself for once and shows some maturation and some growth. Of course, he calls Jerica first. And this is another weakness. They only had 30 minutes for this plate. How in the hell was he going to call Jerica and she could actually get there in the city of Chicago and all of its traffic? How in the hell was she going to be able to get there in a fraction of the 30 minutes? And then how was she going to be able to sneak a plate into the room so that he could plate it and present it to the judges? But they set it up, and actually he figures it out on his own, which shows, like I said, some growth in the brother. And he comes up with a story to tell the judges when they come over to him. And he actually says, I'm gonna do this. I'm serving this family style because it's some kind of chili that he made. So he gives them the sob story about it, and alludes to the fact that his brother is no longer with him, and that this is what he used to do. Not like they know exactly what was going on in that area of his life, but they buy it. And I thought it was nasty, for 3 people to stick their spoons in there, but they just took a taste of it and kept it moving. At the end of it all, this particular hero, Brandon, is successful, and he informs later on in the episode, he informs Jerica that he made it to the second round, the semifinal round. So at least something ended positive for one of the main characters. The next point is just Maisha. She has a very, one of the hardest luck characters on the show is Maisha. She's stuck at home, basically, watching over the kids. We don't see Maisha, who she lives with, who her mother is. We don't quite know how many kids it is that she's watching, but it's at least 3. It may be 4 or 5. We don't see Papa's people either. We only really see Jake with Reg, and we see Kevin with his mother and his mother's girlfriend, and then Keisha. But Maisha shows up, and she's actually a lovely young lady. She's already smart as hell and crafty, but she shows a lot of guile and everything. The way that she manipulates, what's the word? She gently manipulates Kevin, basically flirting with him because she kind of likes him, and he's kind of softening up on her and learning. I mentioned this last week that he's learning to have some empathy for her and understand what's going on with her home life. But again, with the writing, how the hell does she come in looking all glammed up and all dolled up for these pictures when we'd seen nothing that really suggested she had the means to be able to do that prior to it? But anyway, the scene works. It's like I said, it's a cute moment. The only thing that I would say about this whole situation with the picture day and how big of a part of the story that how big of part of the episode that they made this, I'm sorry, man. It's just not believable that a cafeteria full of black kids would engage in a food fight. This was kind of cliched to me to use this food fight situation. The hell with, I mean, it doesn't make sense on one hand because everybody had not taken their pictures yet. So who the hell would be sitting here with ketchup, would risk, having ketchup and mustard and spaghetti or pizza stains or whatever? Who would risk having that on your clothes? But then beyond that, who the hell would go home to their parents and say, we had this food fight and, instant ass whooping? So I thought that whole situation right there was cliche. And then in addition to that, it's a separate gang, a younger brother of another gang, a rival gang member that's beefing with Jake, and Jake instigates this whole, initiates everything with throwing the milk at the young kid. I just don't see them resolving that particular situation at that moment with food versus them just fighting. So it's like they're committed to these kids. But I don't know how that was just an area of weakness for me, weakness in the script for me, or the storyline. But again, like I said, it's an opportunity to for adults to watch it and reminisce and go down memory lane and whatnot. But I'm just not a fan of the kids being in the forefront so much on this one. My next point, I only got about two more. With this being a showdown, Ronnie actually goes and meets with, now that he's out on the streets, he's back out. He got out last week. Excuse me. He actually believes that one thing that he says out loud, I don't forget if he was talking to anybody when he said it, but he said that he was going to make this situation right. Somehow or another, he was going to redeem himself, despite the fact that he killed Coogie pretty much in cold blood. If he didn't do it intentionally, he did everything leading up and put himself in the situation, as he does everything. He's a screw up. But he created this situation to where that was the likely outcome, and this young man lost his life. And that's why I said I'm going to continue to struggle with him as a primary character in the show, because it's really been no justice to Coogie. But they're trying to tell us how they're gonna do this. Damn, what am I watching? How that what's the future in here for a guy who can't do anything right? But he goes to meet Tracy, and he is successful in overcoming his inability to communicate and to express himself and to influence others, and to for his character to just move his arc along to whatever the hell it is that he's trying to do. Like I said last week, we learned that there's a reason why the brother is all jacked up and seems like a complete piece of crap, but it's still not enough for me to overlook the fact that he shot a young boy. And as we saw in this episode, one of the ladies in the community spits in his face and lets him know, you're not welcome around here. We're not forgiving you. Every time we see you, you're just gonna be an outcast from here on out. But anyway, he consoles Tracy, who we find out, and I have her name right here, Ty something. But Tracy, one of my favorite characters on the show, for obvious reasons, Miss Tracy. It is Ty Davis. Yeah, Ty Davis is phenomenal. I like Ty. But I thought she was on drugs, had been on drugs when she came to the door to answer the door when Ronnie knocked on the door. We actually find out that she's just extremely depressed and not handling, the death of her son, her child, Jason. She's struggling with that very badly. And Ronnie goes over and somehow he manages to console her. He actually manages to convince Tracy, we got to find a way to move on. And Tracy lets it be known that Jason's daughter was born a few weeks ago. She hadn't went to go see the child, and Ronnie facilitates that meeting between grandmother and granddaughter. And he gets Tracy out of the house. She says she found it hard to get out of bed and just doesn't have any meaning in her life anymore. But Ronnie is successful here in putting her back in touch with this child, and it was one of his best moments in these 12 or 13, 14 episodes. He finally did something right. It's just like I said, I'm gonna continue to struggle with how he does anything to rival. Like, when does he just tell somebody that I just was upset and I went to go confront Coogie, and he did it in the confession, I guess. He may have mentioned this to Brandon, but I don't know if they were on speaking terms enough where the situation wasn't too escalated for them to have that discussion. But I don't know how he makes up for that. We will see. But at least he did one thing, one positive thing, and was able to do something. The other show, so that was one showdown, was between Ronnie and Tracy. Then the other showdown, I think I mentioned 3, was Jada and Emmett's dad, Darnell, I believe is his name. Emmett's dad. Darnell's whole reason for going to see Jada, the premise for him to go to her was just unbelievable. I mean, I'm not going to say the writing right there was horrible. But, and, maybe when he shows up, last week we saw a reunion, a impromptu reunion between Emmett and Tiff, where they got down. So this week we see Darnell go over to see Jada, and he has to talk his way into the door or into the apartment. And then when he gets in, they started. It was up and down. The communication was up and down. But then obviously when Darnell lets it fly that he was over there seeking some type of reimbursement for housing his son, and Emmett living with them now. Of course, Jada is like, I don't get F out of here. Foxtrot Oscar Hotel. Wrap this up. And but you can see when she went to the door to answer the door and she sees who it is, she takes a moment to get herself together, take her bandana off, straighten her hair up, and you didn't know where it was gonna go. And then of course, Darnell was giving her that old flame look, licking his lips a little bit. And then, like I said, but as the conversation goes on, it reminds her why they don't F with one another. And like by the end of the scene, she not only disagrees or declines to give him any money for Emmett, who he should have went to directly for money anyway. That's the person that's staying there. But he leaves empty-handed. So that was another showdown. Other than that, what I just mentioned earlier about the picture day, we find out that this individual, I don't know his name, the leader of the 63rd Street mob, the CEO of it, who's 5 levels of separation removed from the crew that stays up in the penthouse. We learn that he's actually a businessman in the city or in the neighborhood. And he's there like McDowell, Mr. McDowell from McDowell's in Coming to America. He's actually there at the picture day sponsoring it and giving out pizza. And so we get an idea of who he is in the community. And then later on in the episode, he actually meets with Reg, or Reg is on the carpet once again. Oh, let me give you the synopsis of the show. I didn't really do that. I usually go on and give you that. The synopsis for the episode was Brandon stresses over the aftertaste food competition and makes a deal with Emmett. An accident at Sonny's threatens Emmett's job. Kevin, Jake, and Papa cause mayhem on a picture day at school, and then Ronnie adjusts to a new life he didn't expect. But anyway, Douda, they said his name was Mr. Perry when the teacher introduced him to the children and thanked him for feeding everybody. I thought he introduced him as something Mr. Perry, but on IMDb his character's name is Douda. Douda, played by Curtis Cook. But he reminds it's revealed as another video, another channel I was watching had an update on this, and it was completely over my head about the reason for the home invasion on Miss Ethel. But I actually this will eventually lead up to Douda. And it's something, I don't know if it's gentrification that they're going to delve into, but Douda is behind purchasing these homes in the neighborhood. It's probably at some discounted price and whatnot. And I believe Mrs. Ethel was one of the people who wasn't willing to sell her house. So Toussaint is closer to getting to the bottom of this thing than what viewers such as myself would have even known. I really hadn't even taken any time to think that the home invasion was connected to anything. But obviously, Reg admits, in his dialogue with Douda, he admits his involvement and says that he outsourced that to some guys, but they didn't understand that it was just they were only meant to threaten the 73-year-old Miss Ethel versus actually harming her, which they took things too far. So I don't think I had anything. Oh, and then of course, like I said with Emmett earlier, and the problem is always in the execution with him. He's balling and earning some money and doing well with the truck, manning the truck for Brandon. But of course, he had to do something extra, and he's selling the weave that I complained about last week, that they just completely dropped that storyline with Amir and Emmett getting back in the business. They had dropped it on last episode, but here it pops up. In addition to selling the tacos, Emmett is also moving weave while he mans the deep fryers and the stove in the taco truck. So Brandon comes and confronts him after he gets out of the aftertaste competition, and of course they have a confrontation. And by the end of once Emmett shows him the money, Brandon, who's obviously in need of money, unless he scores these 5 bands for winning this contest. That's kind of where it sits. That's kind of where it stands. So look, man, I made this one even longer. I made it 7 to 8 minutes longer than the first recap. The first time I tried to do this today. I have to keep an eye on that in the future to understand that once a month, this streaming key must change, and that's why I wasn't able to stream my. That's why nobody saw the first stream that I did earlier today. I think that one was a little over 33 minutes. Here I am now at 43. That's probably that probably drives everybody away. Like, nobody wants to hear about this show for that long. But next week I'll keep it a lot shorter. Look, man, I appreciate it. Again, consider subscribing to the channel for some of these different recaps on entertainment stuff, entertainment topics. Hit that notification in case your man has the links and everything all screwed up. I believe, if the stream does go out there, it might not have the right title on it. But what I'm doing here on the screen actually should match up, and you should be able to pick up on what I'm talking about if the title itself is off. Like I said, working between YouTube and the program that I use to stream, I still haven't figured out how to make those work seamlessly, and mistakes do happen. that's pretty much it, man. Let me get on off here. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday night. Obviously, we know right now what season it is with Game of Thrones on HBO. We got a 82-minute show coming up tonight. Looks like we could lose some characters tonight, possibly. With the whites being outside of Winterfell, and look like something really getting ready to jump off. So that's pretty dope. I'm just trying to find something here real quick before I get ready to get on off of here. What is going on? I did not want that. Let me see. So that's it, man. Like I say all the time, you don't have to be I just want to make sure I do this right real quick as I sign off here. But you don't have to be great to start, but you have to start to be great. I'm going to get out of here to some music. A little single from my guy in the city that's doing well with his music. I just wanted to make sure I'm still testing out how to get this function to work while I'm actually, for the intro actually, but I think I can do it for the outro without any error. But let me get on off here. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll holler at you in the future.